Welcome, everyone, to the fifth episode of Here We Go Cleveland. It's been a long time since we recorded an episode, but we're back. We're ready for action. Um, Not
Lots of
sure.
this.
Lots to discuss. Yeah, lots of things going on. The Indians are currently playing. We kind of botched two episodes trying to record as they played last time. So, fortunately, they're on a weird streaming service that neither of us can um, watch at the same time or be put off by competing internet speeds. So, let's recap last week a little bit with the Browns and the Bengals and um, what Mike, what was your biggest takeaway from last week's big loss by the Cats?
What? Yeah, I mean, what a disappointing appearance. There was so much hype going into that game that for fool me once, shame on me. Fool me four times, shame on the other way around. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me four times, shame on me. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's becoming increasingly. Disappointing that we can't seem to put anything together, and when we do, it's too little, too late. So I think there's a lot to be desired, but we just don't have the talent. Is what it comes down to, which is the most frustrating part. Is that we're gonna continue to anticipate wins, and I don't know. I can't get behind another after being fooled by the Colts and the Bengals. I can't pick the Browns again to win until they actually win. So
Right.
I'm just gonna assume that we're gonna lose. So
Yeah.
what about you?
I mean, it. I knew the offense was going to struggle because Cincy's defense is pretty good, and especially with getting Perfect back in the lineup after his suspension. But the Browns defense disappointed me so much. I mean, I guess I have to look at it with the glasses on that Garrett is still out, even though he was almost ready for that game. Um, Danny Shelton was out last week, and Jamie Collins was still recovering from his concussion. So if you look at it through those glasses, I guess they didn't do half as bad as you'd expect, but it was like a first down seemed to happen every play for the
Yeah,
Bengals. They just seemed to be like it was like a really really good high school team being able to just run around like a little farm team. It
yeah.
was it was pretty bad.
I know it's easy to pick like when you're consistently bad. I know it's easy to pick things out that you think contributed to why your team didn't win or something like that. But I look back at the first quarter and there's just there's no reason for some of the mistakes that we continue to see. I mean, we get the ball to start the game. We run it a couple times. We have a 3rd and 3, and Kenny Britt false starts. Kenny Britt, a wide receiver, false
That
start.
was tough to
That
watch.
on other teams that happens once a year. Like
Yeah,
wide receivers rarely false start in the NFL because everyone is supposed to watch the ball. You're not listening because you're that far away from the center that listening doesn't really do you any good, right? You
right,
need to
right.
watch the ball.
You
So
know. Sorry to interrupt, but you know when that happens, like when that most actually happens is when like underdog college teams go into some Ohio State, Alabama, and they're up big and the crowd's wild,
yeah,
and then they false start. That's when that happens, not in the NFL.
yeah, and so it's just like that. So that turns a 3rd and 3 to a 3rd and 8, right? So we end up not getting it. Like it's just all these little things that and maybe Deshaun Kaiser isn't as good as I like to believe that he can be or he will be, but the guy has no help whatsoever. And I mean, and then there's a pass later in the game when the score is 7-0 that and we're in the red zone that goes through Kenny Britt's hands, off his chest, and into a Bengals defender. And it's just like, how can you win games when it seems like sometimes you're playing, 8 versus 13 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, so it's just that's the part that's frustrating. If we were putting together, decent drives and we were eliminating the penalties and stuff like that, you see some sort of structure, but we're a mess. I mean, and that's, like I said, we talk about often on the pod, we talk about being eternal optimists. Like, we can look through games and find positives in almost anything. I couldn't find one in this game.
Yeah.
I really couldn't find a positive, and that's concerning considering it was only game 4.
Right.
So
yeah, I don't even know if I could name anyone that, showed any kind of flashes at any moment last game. It was just like,
the one guy that I was excited to see what he did this season was Jordan Leslie, and even he got injured.
yeah.
So
Yeah. It's just all downhill and sliding into a bigger and bigger pile of crap at the bottom of the league. And let's transition now to play one of but at the beginning of the season seemed to be the king of the NFL turd was the New York Jets, but now it's slowly transitioning to, and I think Browns fans were kind of, maybe talking or laughing at the Jets because everyone was talking about how bad they were, and now it's come full circle where even though the Browns are favored at home, it doesn't. I don't like their chances against the Jets. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen, but so I have written down here. It's pumpkin spice latte season. I personally have not tried one yet this season. I don't even know if I've ever tried one of the infamous PSLs, but they're only here for a little bit of time. So let's talk about one thing, one characteristic. Maybe it's sticky gloves, concrete shoes for the other team. But what's one fad that you would like to see the Browns have, knowing that it may be gone in week 10 or so?
Oh man, you go first. Have you thought about it a little bit?
I mean, I've thought about this. I definitely would like to see like 150 yards a game from Duke, rushing and receiving.
Yeah.
That'd be great to be able to see him, like, just to see how that, like a maybe 200 yards a game, see how that would impact the rest of the Browns, take pressure off the wide receivers, take pressure off the offensive line to work so hard, just see what an actual good running back and game can do for the offense.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think like to me, the underlying issue on the offensive side of the ball is just that no one is threatened whatsoever by our receivers, and they shouldn't be. So what was supposed to be a strong point in our team, which was the running game, because on paper we have a pretty good offensive line, which I think they're getting better by the week. And I think we have a pretty good running back in Isaiah Crowell. I think Duke Johnson can do some damage out of the backfield, and I also think that Matt Days is a decent running back. But none of that matters if you don't have someone to keep the defense honest outside. Or, I mean, some teams have 2 or 3 guys that can do that. So I would love to see someone. What I would say to that question, Bill, is someone emerge as a legitimate threat. Like, I don't know who that could possibly be. I have zero faith in Kenny Britt. I would love to see it be him.
Yeah.
I would love to see him earn his paycheck, but I think if I had to pick one player, I think it would probably be Kason Williams, this new guy that, I think he fits the eye test, and I don't know. I would just love to see over the next 3 or 4 games a receiver establish himself as a reliable target for DeShone Kizer, because at this point, I feel bad for the guy because
Yeah,
he's the scapegoat. I mean, his numbers are terrible. He has
right.
8 interceptions so far this season. At least two of which came off tips, right?
Yep, yep.
So it's I think that he is being dealt an unfair hand because he has no weapons to work with whatsoever.
Yeah, and I think I've heard on a lot of people talking this week about um, oh well, look who the Browns chose Cody Kessler over Dak Prescott. Browns chose they let Carson Wentz slide. They didn't take Trubisky. They didn't take Deshaun Watson. But if you look at those guys and the situations that they're in, people that say that we took Cody Kessler over Dak Prescott, I mean, so did every other team in the league. They took someone else over Dak Prescott. I think people are giving the Browns and Deshaun Kaiser um, just a lot more negativity than they actually deserve because, I mean, you throw any one of those rookie quarterbacks into the Browns system and it's not going to work out well for them. I mean, maybe a couple of guys would do. Maybe they'd have a win by now or something, or maybe 1-3. But they
That's a
still
great
they still wouldn't look that great considering the receivers and the other talent around the quarterback.
Yeah, no, that's a great point because there's a lot of old school guys in the NFL that I think are really hoping for the Browns to fail
Mm-hmm.
because they're taking this kind of new age approach and look, by all accounts, it's failed to this point. However, that being said, I think from day one when this new regime came in with Hugh Jackson and Sashi Brown being head of football operations, they've always said it's going to be a 3-year plan. So we're not even halfway there.
Right.
So I know it's frustrating for us as fans to watch a game where we're so overmatched that it's really difficult to watch. But they didn't say that it was the media blowing up the fact that we should see a drastic improvement this year. And the year is still young, so there's still potential for us to see that improvement. But to your point, Dak Prescott walks into a situation in Dallas where he has arguably the best offensive line in the league. He has uh, a top five running back. He
Yeah.
has probably a top five wide receiver in Des Bryant, and honestly, probably a top 10 to 15 reliable target in Jason Witten.
Yeah, and Cole Beasley and he did have Miles Austin, but there were other pieces that they had in
And
line
it's
for him.
argument everyone wants to beat up the Browns right away on guys like Dak Prescott and this year Deshaun Watson. And I don't second guess. I like Deshaun Watson as a person, but I don't second guess that decision whatsoever because yeah, you put Deshaun Kaiser with a guy like DeAndre Hopkins and some of and even Braxton Miller and the best defense in the league. Guess what? Deshaun Kaiser starts to look
Right.
probably a lot better than he's looked so far. So I think the comparisons all have to be relative, but for some reason the media just love the Browns are such an easy target. The
Right.
media, if there's one thing that is a safe bet in the NFL with especially this year, things have the Bills are overperforming, the Jets are overperforming, the Patriots are underperforming a little bit. It's easy for a national media member to have a chance at being right about the Browns not performing.
Yeah.
So I think everyone just gangs up on them because they know they'll be right or they have a good shot to be right about it. But um, I just when I hear that stuff, when I hear these old school guys talking shit on the Browns' way of doing business, it makes me want them to succeed that much more because they think that you have to have this gut feeling from 30 years of scouting to be able to make an informed decision in the NFL, and that's not the way business is done anymore.
Right.
Like those decisions are turning across sports, not just the NFL, are turning into calculated risk and analytics backed risk. It's not about having this gut feeling, and so it really annoys me when these guys who will there be a place for those guys in the NFL? Sure, but I think you'll see. I would love to see it work just to spite these guys who just insist on having this gut feeling about players. So
Right. And I mean, to not counter your point, but to add to your point, I guess would be, you know, I think the Browns quarterbacks, drafted quarterbacks especially get the negativity just because every media person tries to go back every draft and say, uh, oh, the Browns chose this quarterback over all these other people, and it's like, actually, now it's smart that the Browns didn't jump for a QB really, really early, because then we wouldn't have Myles Garrett. And I know he hasn't played yet, but he's a transcendent talent. And when you see these games, you obviously can see that the Browns need improvement in way more other areas than the quarterback. So I think they're being really smart, and they probably did run some calculated risk calculations, and they didn't want to pull the trigger on anyone, or jump up and lose future draft picks, just to grab any other quarterbacks this year. I mean, yeah, some of them are doing pretty decent, but the Browns aren't ready for a decent rookie quarterback yet. So,
yeah,
all right, so let's jump into our Week 5 preview. We have the New York Jets coming into town into Cleveland. The Jets are actually 2-2. Let's see here. One of the big things I had written down is that the Browns have gotten off to the tough part about winning ball games is you have to John Madden-esque score more points than the other team, and the Browns have let other teams score points so early this year. They're always clawing back, either to just tie the game or to get within a touchdown, or they have a field goal and they're down 13, or it's their early deficits has really killed the Browns. And I don't know if it's a mindset thing to get the guys really, the other team seems to be ready to jump at the bit and score as soon as they can, but the Browns need to do a much better job of getting a first quarter touchdown or being the first team to score, so they can play from ahead or tied for a much larger portion of the game than just always playing from behind. What are your thoughts on that?
The Browns are the only team in the NFL that have yet to lead any point in one game, which is through 4 games, and it's just. It's things like penalties that turn a 3rd and 3 on an opening drive to a 3rd and 8. It's things like dropped balls. It's things like missed field goals. I have to imagine that the NFL is such an emotional game and a momentum game that had we converted a field goal on in the first quarter and taken a lead, I truly believe that can have a significant outcome on the rest of the game if you're the one to throw the first punch, and we can't get there. And I think that's where I become a little concerned about coaching. Mm-hmm. Is that I think that's coaching, right? I think that too many penalties is a coaching thing. I think that coming out flat and having to basically take 2 quarters to get in. I think that's a coaching thing. So yeah. I love Jackson. I really like Greg Williams, but I that's what concerns me. And I still am very optimistic about, as this team grows, that we still have potential to look. If we're going to win 5 games, I'd rather win the last 5 games than win the first 5.
Yeah.
Because then you'll regress right through the last 11 games. So yeah. But I'm at the point now where I'm a little concerned if we'll win 3 games or 2 games. I haven't seen it yet. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I agree with you wholeheartedly that you need to have the it's such a momentum game that you need to strike first, and that can
Right.
change really the entire momentum. So we'll see what happens. What my I was so the Giants are also in the same boat, right? The Giants are 0-4, and no one's talking about the Giants, right? Like the
Right.
Giants have a lot of talent on the offense and defensive side of the ball, but everyone's talking about how shitty the Browns are, which is annoying because
Yeah.
the Giants probably 8 potential Pro Bowlers on that team. So
Something.
anyway, my question is, would you today trade our number one, whatever our first pick? We have 2 first round picks next year. Would you trade our first over whatever that is, 1, 5, 10, whatever it ends up being, for Odell Beckham?
If the Giants were willing to do that, yeah, in a heartbeat, yes. Because, I mean, to be able to get a talent like him, I mean, we stocked up draft picks for years, and we've
Yeah,
gotten more and more, and we probably would still have a very good looking set of draft picks for the next year if we traded him, and say even the 2019 like second round pick or something like that.
yeah,
But I mean, just to get a guy in Cleveland that literally every slant play, cornerbacks are scared that he can take it to the house.
yeah.
Like it to have a weapon like that is kind of how I see, like Miles Garrett being on the defensive side. To have a guy that some offense or defense has to think about every single play. And the Browns don't have a guy. I mean, Joe Thomas is probably close to that, but he's only a left tackle. He's not a skill player that defenses have to worry about the ball being in his hands. And to have a guy like that on the Browns, that's once in like a generation. I mean, he's putting up Jerry Rice numbers his first few seasons. I would hands down do that as soon as the Giants would say yes.
I hope they're making these calls because you never know what's within reach until you see like reach out because I know they've had some problems with Odell. I know that Odell wants to be one of the highest paid players in the NFL, and I just like you said, I mean, he was drafted, I think, number 13 overall. So if we had to trade a top 5 pick for him, I don't think that's a bad investment to be a staple on your team for the next 10 years and pay the guy.
No,
So
no,
I don't know if he's the one. I am obsessed with his play, and I would take the baggage that comes along with it because the guy's incredible.
yeah,
But there's just, like I said, I think it is so demoralizing to me that our AFC rivals, Marvin Lewis after the game I saw said to Hugh Jackson, "Don't let these guys quit on you." Earlier in the season, Ben Roethlisberger said basically that, hey, they gave it their best shot. Like it was patronizing, right?
yeah,
And
right.
then you see a guy like Pac-Man Jones, who's, I mean, by all accounts, somewhat of a thug, right? So
I would use somewhat. I don't know if that's the right connotation to use in between
yeah,
Pac-Man Jones and Thug, but
he even said it's going to be real difficult for Hugh to win with that talent. I mean, when you're seeing that from other guys, it's like, you know, I want to see the front office succeed, and I understand the business side of what they're trying to do, but at some point you got to get some talent. You got to get some talent.
yeah,
So it's one
yeah,
of those picks. We have five first round or what 5 picks in the first 2 rounds this year, and get a receiver that can stretch the field and,
right,
and
right. I mean,
put a
there's
threat
there was
there.
talk last year. We were gonna take that the wide receiver from I'm missing up blanking on his name right now from Washington that broke the um,
John Ross.
yeah, John Ross, or I don't know if it was the same year or the year before that. There was talk of taking like Josh Doxson from
Yeah.
TCU, and there's always like kind of talks, and we've never taken like. I mean, I don't know if there's a. I haven't watched too much college football this year, and there's still time for breakout players to happen. So I don't know if there is a Calvin Johnson type, Larry Fitzgerald type talent of wide receivers But I definitely think that should be where the
Yeah.
Browns' focus is.
Well, yeah, and I think the only one I haven't watched a ton either, but I think the main one is Calvin Ridley from um, Alabama is kind of the main receiver in the draft class this year. But why if you're going to spend a first round pick, why not just spend one on someone who's a proven commodity already?
Yeah,
A guy, and maybe it's not Odell Beckham. Obviously, he's probably one of the best three receivers in the league, but you know Antonio Brown, there seems to be some like just pick up the phone. I would be so much more, I guess I don't know what the word is, but I would be so much more into the season if we went out and made an aggressive play at a young receiver that we locked in for the next 4 or 5 who's just entering his prime,
right.
like Beckham or Antonio Brown, and said, "Look, let's do it."
Yeah, yeah. I definitely think that would be amazing. And even though, they may not, we couldn't. I don't even think we'd be able to evaluate them after this year for how good they could be because the Browns need to put a lot more pieces together with that, very skilled wide receiver um, before we could even really evaluate how it all worked out. But if they are actually, I mean, it kind of even makes sense for the Giants because they don't have to deal with, and I don't know if Odell would want to come play in Cleveland and leave the limelight of New York, but the Browns have the money. The Giants wouldn't have to worry about all the, him trying to be the highest paid player in the NFL, regardless of position, and they also need to replace Eli Manning at some point
Yeah,
soon, some point soon. It looks like after as this season's going on, and they could use some of the Browns' draft picks to, um, fill some of those spots. And I don't know if this is just me talking myself into the hopes of and optimism that Odell Beckham brings, but I think it's almost good for the Giants to do too.
yeah, no, and that's kind of what I was thinking as well. Is it's not initially you step back and say no, that's stupid, right? Like the Giants would never do that. But then you take a step back and you think about their needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about they're a pretty good team, but if Eli can't sustain high level of play, they'll only go as far as Eli takes them. They're 0-4 this year. They've had some problems with Odell. They don't have the cap space that the Browns have. So when you factor all those things in, it's not as like crazier things have happened in the NFL.
Right,
So
right.
if they trade him and agree to pay Odell Beckham $18 million a year, which I think he's worth every penny, then maybe Odell says, "Shit, it's about the money for me. I'll play in wherever
Right.
Africa."
Yeah, yeah, who knows? I mean, there's kind of a similar situation going on in the MLB with the Marlins and Giancarlo. Like he
Yeah,
is one of the greatest hitters um, of the last like 10 years, and there's talk of shipping him out to just get a bunch of prospects and start new. And I don't know if that's the new ownership talking, but I mean that's a guy same as I mean they already paid him a ridiculous amount of money, but he has the top level talent like Odell has, and their talk of trading him because they should blow it up and like I said, it just takes the right team to call that have the right amount of assets um, to be able to get some movement on that. So
so you're telling me you would do it in a
I
heartbeat?
would definitely do it. I would easily do it. But let's jump into one of our last segments here. Since unfortunately we don't have Odell as a player to watch on the Browns this week, who is your player to watch against the Jets?
Um, Man, that's a tough one. So obviously Miles Garrett will be if he. I tell you what, he could change. He could change the whole momentum of a city. And let's a couple other things we'll talk about later. But I think just imagine if the Indians weren't in the playoffs, how much pressure the Browns would be under,
Oh,
or
I
if the
know.
Cavaliers weren't good, because this is a football town, And I think a lot of fans haven't been focused on the Browns so much because we're so excited about the new look Cavs, right? We got Dwayne Wade, and we didn't even talk about that, but we
Yeah.
got some that are exciting and a lot of depth on that team. And the Indians are in another postseason, even though they're down 6-3 right now. What's that about? But um, as far as my player to watch, it would be Miles Garrett's the easy one, but kind of my under the radar um, would be Casey Williams. I don't know
Yeah.
why. Like I said, I have a bit of an affinity to him, and I think he can really be a difference maker. And I hope that we see that. I hope we see a receiver emerge for 100 yards or so this week.
Yeah,
So
I want to see, I guess a group to watch and kind of tackles on your point there is the wide receiver group. I mean, and I want to watch them be intense and be in the game. I don't want to watch them Kenny. I'm not there. The group is not going to be a group to watch if they're just going to be slouching around and dropping balls and everything like that. Because I think that they could really help Deshaun um, grow, and they were supposed to. And it's just, I mean, there's been some injuries, but those guys just need to step up. I mean, they're NFL wide receivers. It's not how hard is it to catch a football, um, but I'm really excited to see Miles Garrett. I've talked all year about how transcendent of a talent he is. Um, so to pick a player that you didn't touch on, um, I'd have to go with uh, David Njoku.
okay.
Um, I just really like his talent. I know he's not starting, doesn't get as much touches um, as I would like to see him get. But
Some
he,
design plays to it.
yeah, some design play. I mean, it seems like you kind of like look around when the Browns score, and oh look, it's Njoku in as the tight end streak. He's got the size, and I mean, it would be great to have some design plays in the red zone for him, but the Browns hardly make it to the red zone. So maybe just run those same plays and act like you're going to score, but it's at the your own 7 or something like that. I think that would be exciting to see him because there's been some times where he, all of a sudden he's in and there's a 20-yard catch down the middle of the field. He's running and grabbing. So, um,
I would love to see a strong performance by Deshaun Kaiser. I mean, I just think that I think he is doing better than the stats lead on with the talent that he has.
that's a
So
good point. That's a great point.
I think that he's at an extreme disadvantage to the other rookies that he's being compared to, and I think if just he had, you know, if he had 5 plays a game where someone on offense made a good play, whether it be a running back making a good cut and turning a 3-yard run into a 12-yard run, or whether it be, a ball that probably shouldn't have been caught because it was a bad throw, it's caught. Like, that is just so important, I think, for all quarterbacks, and even more importantly, a young quarterback to have some help. And I just haven't seen one play where I'm sitting back and I'm saying, wow, he just bailed Deshaun Kaiser out. I'm
Yeah,
not seeing that at all.
yeah.
The only play I've seen is defenders drop interceptions, and I'm saying, wow, that defender bailed Kaiser out. There's not one play where I've seen or heard or watched that I've said, that ball should have been picked, or that ball should have been dropped, or should not have been caught. It's just like, give me something that, I mean, he can only do so much. So I would love to see him throw for a couple touchdowns and maybe 250 and one pick or no picks. And I like watching the guy play, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be great to see, just have, at least a few like good drives where he's working the ball and the receivers are getting like to start to see people get hot and get confident and see him get hot and confident would be, I think that would really really do good measures for this team moving forward, even if they don't win or um, I think that the Browns players being able to really capitalize on some opportunities and drives would just be work out really well for them. But so the Browns are favored 2.5 points. Well, it opened at 2.5 points. I think now the line's kind of moved as people are jumping on the Jets because they don't believe in the Browns. The line's moved to a pick 'em, but we'll go with the original spread. Browns by 2.5. What's your pick?
Jets. Yeah, I can't pick the Browns until I see a game where they look competent.
Yeah.
So
And everyone last week was saying, "Oh my God, the Browns are like favored on the road. Bet the Colts. Bet the Colts."
yeah,
And now they're favored at home, and it usually flips switch,
yeah,
but it not with this Browns team. It's I think the Jets are gonna be. I mean, I would like to see at least a high scoring game because then you know that the Browns actually maybe you know put the ball in the end zone, did some good things. But I just think it's going to be the Jets. I mean, this was the game where if the Browns were 0-4 um, and had lost some close games, this was the game where they would pick up their first win. If you thought before the season, but now it just looks like, oh gosh, the Browns are about to lose to the preseason. I'm already thinking that they are going to lose to the preseason worst team in the NFL.
right, right.
So
Bill,
yeah,
I'll leave you with this. I got a couple Browns tickets here sitting on my desk,
yeah.
and I just want you to say for our literally half a dozen of fans, who the picture on the ticket.
Is none other than the infamous Joey Hayden.
Yeah, so if that pretty much sums up where Browns fans are feeling about this time of year is, I mean, tickets. I think ticket sales are going to be they'll be giving tickets away if the play continues as it is. But
Yeah, I know it's
the, I don't understand. We clearly have much more talent than we had last year. I think I feel very confident in saying that, but I just haven't seen it schematically like
right.
translate into competent play. So I'm optimistic that at some point that will turn and we'll start to see, maybe not 15 drives a game that look like, world beaters, but I'm just asking for five drives a game where we get some first downs. Maybe it stalls out, but we can't even get that. So we'll
Yeah, it's. I mean, usually I'm
we'll
excited for Browns games, even no matter the opponent. But I'm already feeling you know some losers remorse
yeah.
already heading into the weekend. So
Yeah. So, well, we will be back on a regular schedule next week, I hope, and we'll have obviously, hopefully, we'll have some baseball to talk about. We'll have some Cavaliers basketball to talk about, but we got a little behind there with some.
yeah, it's all right. We were playing schedule tag,
Yep.
and it was a tough game. It was a challenging game of schedule tag. So we had to take a week off during that. But all right, thanks everyone for listening. Uh, Again, here we go, Cleveland, Bill Hebel, along with Michael Zappa. Um, Thanks everyone for listening. Bye.